Hey guys, tonight we're diving deep into the weird and wonderful world of Greek mythology, specifically focusing on a god you might not think about often, but whose story is surprisingly relevant even today. Imagine, if you will, the gentle hum of a celestial forge, the rhythmic clang of hammer on anvil echoing through the starry expanse. You feel the heat radiating from molten metal, see sparks showering like tiny, fleeting constellations. A faint smell of sulphur and magic hangs in the air, oddly comforting. You're standing on the precipice of Mount Olympus, looking down into a divine workshop where gears whir and steam hisses long before the first industrial revolution even thought about rumbling into existence. You probably won't survive this dive into the divine drama and technological marvels of ancient Greece, but don't worry, it'll be worth it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop a comment below with your location and local time. I always love seeing where you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Our story begins not with a glorious birth or a prophecy fulfilled, but with a rather dramatic, shall we say, unboxing experience. You see, the gods on Olympus, for all their power and grandeur, were often just as messy and dysfunctional as any family reunion you've ever attended. And no one embodies this divine dysfunction quite like Hephaestus. He was the son of Zeus and Hera, the king and queen of the gods. Sounds like a pretty sweet gig, right? Born into royalty, bathed in divine light, probably had a golden pacifier. Nope, not Hephaestus. His mother, Hera, was known for many things: her majestic presence, her fierce loyalty, to herself mostly, and a temper that could make a supernova look like a flickering candle. She was also incredibly proud, obsessed with appearances, and, well, let's just say she had a very specific vision for her offspring. When Hephaestus arrived, you can almost hear the record scratch on Olympus. He wasn't the picture-perfect, impossibly beautiful god like Apollo or Aphrodite. He was, by all accounts, born with a limp, a physical imperfection that, to Hera's discerning eye, was an absolute scandal. Imagine giving birth to a divine being and thinking, ugh, this one's got a glitch. Send it back. Historians still argue whether his deformity was present at birth or a result of what happened next, but the outcome was the same. Hera, in a fit of disgust and humiliation, did something truly shocking, even by Olympian standards. She grabbed her newborn son, her own flesh and blood, and hurled him from the dizzying heights of Mount Olympus. Think about that for a second. One moment, you're in the arms of a goddess. The next, you're hurtling through the sky like a rejected celestial frisbee. It's a pretty mainstream historical fact that divine parents in Greek myths were often, shall we say, tough love practitioners. But this was next level. This wasn't just grounding him, this was attempting to unbirth him. A quirky tidbit: some myths suggest Zeus was also involved in the toss, but most finger Hera. Honestly, it fits her brand. So, you're plummeting through the heavens, a newborn god, still slick with divine afterbirth, and the ground is rushing up to meet you. Not exactly the softest landing. Hephaestus fell for an entire day and a night. A truly epic tumble that would make any theme park ride seem like a gentle stroll. Imagine the wind whistling past your ears, the clouds streaking by, and the increasing certainty that this is not how divine life is supposed to start. This wasn't some gentle float down to earth on a fluffy cloud. This was a high-speed, uncontrolled descent. Hephaestus was lucky he wasn't splattered across the countryside like a celestial bug on a windshield. His destination? Not a soft meadow, but the unforgiving vast expanse of the Aegean Sea. Now, falling into water from that height Wouldn't exactly be a pleasant experience either, but it certainly beats hitting solid rock. When he finally hit the surface, it must have been with an almighty splash, sending up a geyser of salt water that probably briefly obscured the sun. You can almost feel the cold shock of the water, the disorientation, the desperate struggle of a tiny, divine infant. This isn't the kind of dramatic entrance you expect from a god, is it? More like a cannonball gone wrong at the public pool. Miraculously, he survived the impact. But now what? A limping baby god, adrift in the immense ocean, alone and abandoned by his own mother. It's a pretty bleak picture, a testament to the harsh realities of even the most powerful families. This moment, his rejection and fall, is a mainstream historical fact in Hephaestus's mythology, cementing his unique position among the Olympians. He's not born into power and beauty, he's born into pain and abandonment. However, fortune, or perhaps fate, had other plans. The ocean, often depicted as a tumultuous and dangerous place, also holds its secrets and its benevolent beings. As Hephaestus drifted, or perhaps sank, into the dark, cold embrace of the sea, he was noticed. Not by a passing fishing boat, of course, but by two powerful and compassionate sea nymphs, Thetis and Eurynome. These weren't just any nymphs. Thetis was a particularly significant figure, destined to be the mother of the great hero Achilles, a fact that will become relevant much, much later in our story. Eurynome was an ancient goddess, a daughter of Oceanus, embodying the vastness of the sea. Think of them as divine lifeguards, but instead of blowing a whistle, they just kind of appeared. They scooped up the little, crying god, perhaps marvelling at his unusual appearance and the very clear signs of a long fall. It's a quirky tidbit that many myths feature powerful beings being rescued from dire circumstances by unexpected benefactors. You might even call it a common trope in heroic narratives, but here it's applied to a god who will become the ultimate craftsman. Historians still argue whether his limp was a permanent birth defect or caused by this epic fall, but either way, it became a defining characteristic, a constant reminder of his traumatic entry into the world. So, instead of finding a cold, watery grave, Hephaestus found salvation in the very element that seemed destined to swallow him whole. Imagine, then, the soft embrace of the deep, the gentle currents rocking you, a stark contrast to the violent descent you just endured. Hephaestus, bruised and bewildered, found himself in a sanctuary unlike any other, a shimmering grotto deep beneath the waves, bathed in the soft, otherworldly glow of bioluminescent creatures. This was the home of Thetis and Eurynome, two goddesses who, unlike his own mother, saw past his outward imperfections and recognized the spark of divinity within him. They didn't see a flaw, they saw a child in need of love and care. It's a powerful lesson, isn't it? That sometimes the family you choose, or the hands that reach out to you in your darkest moment, are far more nurturing than the ones you're born into. For 9 long years, Hephaestus lived with these compassionate sea nymphs. You can picture it, the constant murmur of the ocean, the gentle sway of kelp forests outside their grotto, the iridescent fish swimming past like living jewels. He was shielded from the harsh realities of Olympus, from the judgment and the backstabbing. Here, he was simply cared for, allowed to heal, and most importantly, allowed to grow. This quiet, formative period underwater is a mainstream historical fact in Hephaestus's origin story, crucial for understanding his character later on. He wasn't raised in the cutthroat environment of the Olympian court. He was nurtured in a place of peace and beauty. During this time, the sea nymphs taught him much, not just about survival, but about the secrets of their underwater world. He learned about the strange and wondrous creatures that dwelled in the depths, the properties of the various shells and stones, and perhaps even the subtle language of the tides. This period of learning, away from the typical divine education, undoubtedly shaped his unique perspective. It's a quirky tidbit that many gods in Greek mythology seem to spring forth fully formed and competent, but Hephaestus had a childhood, a period of genuine growth and development, albeit an unconventional one. You can almost see him, a little divine toddler, playing with pearl oysters instead of building blocks. Hephaestus, unlike his more glamorous siblings, developed a deep appreciation for the practical, the tangible. His hands, though still small, likely itched to create. This quiet time was a period of intense observation and learning, where he began to understand the fundamental principles of the natural world, something that would later translate into his mastery over metals and fire. Historians still argue about the exact nature of his early education. Was it formal training from the nymphs, or simply an innate curiosity that blossomed in this nurturing environment? Regardless, this underwater sanctuary provided the perfect incubation for his nascent talents. Hephaestus's time with Thetis and Eurynome wasn't just about healing his physical wounds. It was about nurturing his soul and setting the stage for him to become the unparalleled craftsman of the gods. He might have been thrown out of heaven, but he found his footing, literally and figuratively, in the embrace of the ocean. Living in a grotto, surrounded by the silent majesty of the ocean, Hephaestus might have seemed destined for a life of quiet contemplation. But deep within him, the spark of his Olympian heritage, the divine fire that coursed through his veins, was beginning to stir. He was a god, after all, and gods are meant to create, to influence, to shape the world around them. And Hephaestus, despite his unique upbringing, was no exception. His hands, which had once felt the jarring impact of the sea, now yearned to shape and mould. One day, as the story goes, he stumbled upon something truly extraordinary. A discarded piece of bronze, or, in some versions, a cluster of volcanic rock that had cooled and hardened. Perhaps it was from a shipwreck or an ancient undersea eruption, but whatever its origin, it caught his eye. You can imagine him, a curious young god, examining it, feeling its weight, its texture, completely absorbed. This discovery was the catalyst, the moment that ignited his true calling. It's a mainstream historical fact that the discovery and manipulation of metals were monumental steps in human technological advancement, and for Hephaestus, this was his personal Bronze Age. But how do you work with metal when you're underwater? Well, that's where the divine spark comes in. Hephaestus had an innate connection to the elements, particularly fire. Even without a traditional forge, he began to experiment. Perhaps he found a way to harness the geothermal vents that sometimes punctuate the ocean floor, using their intense heat to soften the metal. Or maybe, with a simple touch, he could imbue objects with his own nascent divine energy, heating them until they became pliable. This is where the myth gets truly fascinating and a little bit fantastical, even for gods. He wasn't just observing, he was actively engaging with the raw materials of the earth. Hephaestus's early experiments would have been crude, undoubtedly. You can picture him, hunched over, his hands smeared with soot, or perhaps, more fittingly, with a kind of metallic slime, trying to pound and shape the stubborn metal. He probably made a few lumpy, misshapen objects before he started getting the hang of it. Think of a divine kindergarten art project, but with real danger of melting your fingers off. It's a quirky tidbit that while most gods had clear domains from birth, Hephaestus had to discover his talent, making him feel more like a relatable prodigy who just needs the right inspiration. Historians still argue about whether his early metalworking was purely intuitive, or if the sea nymphs, with their vast knowledge of the natural world, provided some guidance on the properties of materials. But one thing is clear: Deep within that undersea grotto, the greatest blacksmith of the gods was beginning to hammer out his destiny. The sounds of gentle currents were slowly giving way to the faint, rhythmic clang of a divine hammer. With the nascent fire of his talent burning bright, Hephaestus began to truly explore his newfound abilities. The grotto, once a quiet sanctuary, gradually transformed into his very first workshop. Imagine the scene. Instead of bellows pumping air, perhaps strong currents, or even the very breath of the ocean itself fanning his divine flames. Instead of a dusty anvil, he might have used a smooth, ancient rock worn by countless tides. His tools? Simple, perhaps fashioned from hardened coral or the toughest shells he could find, adapted for the delicate yet forceful work of metalworking. His initial creations weren't grand statues or formidable weapons for gods. No, Hephaestus first turned his skills to crafting gifts for his benefactors, Thetis and Eurynome. You see, unlike his Olympian family, who often took his gifts for granted, or even demanded them, these sea nymphs had shown him genuine kindness and love. He felt a deep sense of gratitude, and what better way to express it than through the work of his hands? It's a mainstream historical fact that reciprocity and gift-giving were incredibly important social customs in ancient Greek society, even among the gods. You can picture the nymphs' delight as Hephaestus presented them with his creations. Perhaps it was intricate jewellery crafted from pearls and sea bronze, shimmering with an otherworldly glow. Imagine delicate necklaces that captured the luminescence of the deep, or bracelets that mirrored the graceful swirl of ocean currents. He might have fashioned ornate combs to adorn their flowing hair, or cunningly designed clasps for their ethereal garments. These weren't just pretty trinkets. They were imbued with his burgeoning skill, each curve and polish a testament to his unique connection with the materials. Hephaestus also started creating practical, yet beautiful, objects for their grotto. Think of self-lighting lamps that drew power from geothermal vents, illuminating the darkest corners of their underwater home, or perhaps mechanized shell openers that made their daily meals a breeze. It's a quirky tidbit that even in his earliest works, Hephaestus showed a propensity for creating objects that were both aesthetically pleasing and ingeniously functional, a hallmark of his later, more famous inventions. He wasn't just a craftsman, he was an inventor, always seeking to improve and innovate. These early creations, born of gratitude and a burgeoning talent, served as his apprenticeship. Each piece he forged, each design he perfected, refined his technique and deepened his understanding of metal, fire, and mechanism. He wasn't just learning to hammer metal, he was learning to imbue it with purpose, with a touch of the divine. Historians still argue about the exact nature of his first inventions, but the consensus is that they were modest, humble offerings reflecting his humble beginnings. This period of quiet innovation in the depths of the sea was vital, allowing Hephaestus to hone his craft away from the demanding eyes of Olympus, preparing him for the far greater challenges and commissions that lay ahead. He was no longer just the limping god, he was the divine artisan in the making. After 9 peaceful years submerged in the ocean's embrace, Hephaestus had grown not just in stature, but in his mastery of the forge. He had forged beauty and utility for his adopted family, honing his skills in a serene environment. But destiny, as it often does, has a way of nudging even the most reclusive of gods back into the broader narrative. And, in Hephaestus's case, that nudge came with a healthy dose of divine payback. You see, while Hephaestus was happily hammering away underwater, Hera, his birth mother, remained on Olympus, oblivious to his survival, or perhaps just uncaring. She was still the proud, often vindictive queen of the gods. Hephaestus, however, had never forgotten her cruel act of throwing him from the heavens. That trauma, though perhaps dulled by the nymph's kindness, simmered beneath the surface. He wasn't one for direct confrontation, not like Ares or Zeus, but Hephaestus had a weapon far more potent, his unparalleled ingenuity. So he conceived a plan, a subtle, elegant, and utterly humiliating plan for Hera. He decided to send her a gift, a masterpiece of his craft, designed not just to impress, but to ensnare. And what did he choose to craft? A magnificent, intricately designed golden throne. This wasn't just any chair. It was a testament to his burgeoning skill, shimmering with divine light, adorned with delicate filigree and seemingly inviting contours. It's a mainstream historical fact that gifts, especially in myth, often come with hidden agendas or consequences. This was no exception. Hephaestus, with a mischievous glint in his eye, or perhaps just a deeply satisfied smirk, sent this elaborate throne up to Olympus. When it arrived, Hera, ever the queen of pomp and circumstance, was undoubtedly thrilled. Imagine her surveying her vast throne room and seeing this glittering, perfect addition. It was a gift worthy of her status, a true piece of divine art. She likely preened, perhaps even boasting to the other gods about this mysterious, beautiful offering. You can almost hear the other gods whispering, "Oh, look at Hera, always getting the fanciest stuff." As soon as Hera settled onto the opulent seat, a series of invisible, unbreakable golden bonds sprang forth from the throne itself, wrapping around her, pinning her firmly in place. These were not crude ropes. These were delicate, shimmering chains, impossible to see until they activated, and utterly impossible to break. Hera, the majestic queen of Olympus, found herself trapped, unable to move, unable to escape. It's a quirky tidbit that Hephaestus, the god of the forge, often used his skill to create traps and snares, showcasing his cunning alongside his craftsmanship. The other gods, rushing to her aid, pulled and tugged, summoned their own divine strength, but nothing worked. The bonds held fast, a testament to Hephaestus's genius. Hera was stuck, a divine spectacle of humiliation, all thanks to the very sun she had cast away. Historians still argue whether this act was pure revenge or a cunning way to force his return to Olympus and recognition, but either way, it was a powerfully effective statement. Hephaestus had made his presence known, and Olympus now knew that the discarded god was not to be underestimated. Hera, trapped and fuming on her golden throne, became the ultimate divine spectacle. The gods tried everything. Zeus thundered. Poseidon tried to shake the palace. Athena even attempted to rationally persuade the throne to release her, which, let's be honest, was never going to work. But Hephaestus's craftsmanship was absolute. The bonds were unbreakable, woven with both magic and mechanical genius. This was a crisis, a full-blown Olympian embarrassment. You can just imagine the whispers among the lesser deities, the snickering nymphs, and the general disbelief that the mighty Hera was stuck in her own furniture. It's a pretty funny image if you think about it. The queen of the gods rendered utterly helpless by a chair. The gods quickly realized that this was no accident. The intricate design, the unbreakable nature of the bonds, only one divine artisan could have created such a thing. And suddenly, the memory of the limping infant hurled from Olympus resurfaced. It dawned on them. This was the work of Hephaestus, the son Hera had discarded. And now, he was calling the shots. This realization is a mainstream historical fact in the myth, signaling Hephaestus's emergence from obscurity and demanding recognition. The problem, however, was that Hephaestus was still down in his underwater grotto, nursing his well-deserved grudge. No one could persuade him to return. The other gods, especially Zeus, knew they couldn't just force him. Hephaestus was clearly powerful, and his skills were now desperately needed. Who else could free Hera? It was a stalemate, a divine standoff. Enter Dionysus, the god of wine, revelry, and madness. Now, you might think Dionysus, with his penchant for partying, would be the last god you'd send on a delicate diplomatic mission. But Dionysus possessed a unique charm, a persuasive quality that often blurred the lines between joy and compulsion. He wasn't about brute force or intellectual debate. He was about loosening inhibitions, softening defences, and making everyone feel good. This particular intervention by Dionysus is a quirky tidbit, often overlooked but crucial in Hephaestus's story. It shows that sometimes the solution isn't in strength or wisdom, but in a well-timed drink and a good time. Dionysus, ever the resourceful one, descended to the sea, found Hephaestus's grotto, and approached him not with demands or pleas, but with an offer of companionship and, naturally, wine. Imagine Hephaestus, surrounded by his tools and molten metal, probably feeling a bit self-satisfied about his trap when this flamboyant god shows up with a wineskin. Dionysus didn't scold or command. He simply shared, and he made Hephaestus feel seen, appreciated, and perhaps, for the first time by an Olympian, genuinely welcomed. As they drank, Dionysus engaged Hephaestus in conversation, perhaps praising his incredible skill, admiring his unique creations, and subtly hinting at the honour and respect that awaited him on Olympus, if only he would return. The wine flowed, and with it Hephaestus's bitterness began to ebb. He wasn't being forced, he was being invited, celebrated even. Historians still argue whether Dionysus simply got Hephaestus drunk enough to agree, or if he genuinely appealed to Hephaestus's desire for recognition and a place among his peers, but the outcome was the same. The plan worked. Hephaestus, perhaps a little tipsy, and feeling a rare warmth, agreed to return to Olympus and release his mother. The divine party god had succeeded where all the others had failed, proving that sometimes the most effective diplomacy involves a good vintage and a friendly chat. So, imagine the scene. Hera, still stubbornly stuck on her golden throne, probably muttering divine curses under her breath, and the rest of the Olympians milling about, frustrated and bewildered. Then, a peculiar procession begins to ascend Mount Olympus. It's not a chariot pulled by majestic steeds, nor a solemn march of powerful deities. No, it's Hephaestus, the limping god, not walking, but riding on the back of a donkey, perhaps led by a cheerful, slightly swaying Dionysus. This image is iconic, and a mainstream historical fact in the myth surrounding Hephaestus's return. It's a wonderfully undignified, yet strangely triumphant, entrance for the god who had just humbled the queen of the gods. Hephaestus, still perhaps feeling the pleasant buzz of Dionysus's excellent wine, arrived at the Olympian court. You can picture the collective gasp of the gods as they saw him. Not the infant they had last glimpsed plummeting from the sky, but a fully grown, albeit physically impaired, god. There might have been whispers, a mix of awe for his skill and embarrassment for Hera's predicament, and in the centre of it all, Hera, still bound, probably glaring daggers at her returning son. With a simple, almost nonchalant gesture, Hephaestus approached the golden throne. You can imagine the tension in the air, the collective holding of divine breath. Was he going to demand an apology? A promise of better treatment? No, Hephaestus, with the quiet confidence of a master craftsman, simply touched the throne, and the invisible bonds instantly dissolved. Hera was free, finally able to move, though perhaps still stiff from being stuck for so long. She probably tried to regain her composure immediately, smoothing her robes, pretending the whole embarrassing episode never happened. But the message had been sent, loud and clear. Hephaestus was back, and he was a force to be reckoned with. His return to Olympus wasn't just about freeing Hera, it was about reclaiming his rightful place. Zeus, perhaps impressed by Hephaestus's cunning and clearly recognizing the immense value of his skills, readily welcomed him. Unlike his initial rejection, this was a moment of true integration. Hephaestus was no longer an outcast. He was a valuable, indispensable member of the Olympian pantheon. This was a significant turning point in his story, marking his official recognition. It's a quirky tidbit that while many gods gain their power through birthright or conquest, Hephaestus gained his recognition through a brilliant act of passive-aggressive engineering. From that day forward, Hephaestus was acknowledged as the god of fire, blacksmiths, artisans, sculptors, metalworking, and volcanoes. He was granted a workshop on Olympus itself, a place where he could unleash his unparalleled creativity without restraint. This was a far cry from the quiet, unassuming grotto he had called home for 9 years. Now, he had access to the finest materials, the most powerful flames, and the constant demand for his unique talents. Historians still argue about the precise motivations behind Hera's initial act. Was it pure cruelty, or a desperate attempt to hide a perceived imperfection from the other gods? But what is undeniable is that her act ultimately led to Hephaestus proving his worth in a spectacular fashion, securing his position as the divine smith. His wobbly entrance on a donkey might not have been majestic, but it was certainly memorable, and it signalled the dawn of a new era for the gods of Olympus, one shaped by the clang of Hephaestus's hammer. With his rightful place secured on Olympus, Hephaestus no longer toiled in the dimly lit grotto. Instead, Zeus, recognizing his unparalleled talent, granted him his own divine workshop, a sprawling forge nestled within the volcanic heart of Mount Etna, or sometimes, in other myths, right there on Olympus itself, spewing smoke and sparks from its divine chimney. Imagine the upgrade. No longer relying on geothermal vents, Hephaestus now commanded the very essence of fire and magma. This was his true domain, a place where the air vibrated with energy, the ground hummed with power, and the scent of molten metal hung heavy and intoxicating. It's a mainstream historical fact that volcanoes were often associated with smith gods in various ancient cultures, symbolizing the raw, transformative power of the earth. You can almost hear the roar of the furnaces, the hiss of quenching metal, and the rhythmic, powerful clang of his hammer reverberating through the divine air. This wasn't just a workshop, it was a cosmic factory, churning out wonders that would define the very fabric of the mythical world. Hephaestus, with his gnarled, powerful hands and his keen, intelligent mind, set about crafting the tools, weapons, and marvels that the gods themselves would wield. His first priority, naturally, was to outfit the very beings who now recognized his genius. For Zeus, the king of the gods, Hephaestus forged the mighty thunderbolts, crackling with raw celestial power. These weren't just glorified lightning bolts. They were precision-engineered instruments of divine wrath, each one perfectly balanced to deliver the ultimate shock and awe. You can imagine Zeus testing them out, a satisfied grin spreading across his face as the skies boomed. For Poseidon, the lord of the seas, Hephaestus crafted the formidable trident, a weapon that could stir oceans, shatter rocks, and command the very waves. This wasn't just a fishing spear. It was an extension of Poseidon's will, a symbol of his dominion over the watery realm. And for Hades, ruler of the underworld, perhaps a helmet that granted invisibility, or a powerful bident to assert his authority over the chthonic realms. But Hephaestus's creations weren't limited to destructive power. He also crafted items of immense beauty and utility. For the other gods and goddesses, he fashioned exquisite jewelry, intricate armor, and magnificent chariots that could traverse the heavens in a blur of divine speed. Think of Ares's gleaming, unbreakable armor, or Aphrodite's dazzling array of golden ornaments, each piece infused with a touch of his magical artistry. It's a quirky tidbit that despite his gruff exterior and physical limitations, Hephaestus was considered the most skilled and artistic of all the gods, a true master of both function and form. Historians still argue about the exact order of his creations and which ones were truly his most significant early works, but one thing is clear: Hephaestus quickly became indispensable. Every god, every goddess, eventually needed something crafted by his hands. His forge became the heart of Olympian innovation, a place where raw materials were transformed into objects of divine power and unparalleled beauty. He was no longer just the god who got thrown off a mountain. He was the master craftsman, the divine engineer, and the true creative force of Olympus. Now, you might think that after being thrown from Olympus, establishing his mastery, and finally getting the recognition he deserved, Hephaestus would have found some peace. You'd imagine he'd be left alone to tinker and forge, perhaps occasionally grumbling about divine deadlines. But this is Greek mythology, and peace is a fleeting concept, especially when Zeus is involved, and so Hephaestus found himself entangled in perhaps the most awkward divine marriage of all time. Zeus, ever the pragmatist, and perhaps feeling a touch of guilt for Hephaestus's earlier trauma, decided that his incredibly valuable craftsman deserved a proper divine wife. And who better to bestow upon him than the goddess of love and beauty herself, Aphrodite? Yes, you heard that right. The most beautiful goddess in all of Olympus, born from the sea foam, radiant and captivating, was essentially given as a bride to the limping, soot-stained god of the forge. It's a mainstream historical fact that this marriage, though often depicted as a mismatch, was sanctioned by Zeus. You can just hear the collective gasp across Olympus when that announcement was made. It was less of a love match and more of a strategic alliance. Imagine Aphrodite's reaction. She, who captivated every god and mortal with her charm and allure, suddenly told she was to marry Hephaestus, the god who spent his days sweating over hot metal, whose hands were calloused, and who, let's be honest, wasn't exactly known for his dazzling good looks or charming conversation. She probably sighed dramatically, fluttering her impossibly long eyelashes in disbelief. It was an arrangement that seemed designed for discomfort, a classic opposites attract scenario taken to an extreme, or more accurately, opposites are forced into matrimony. Hephaestus, for his part, was likely pragmatic about it. He probably appreciated the honour, even if he understood the underlying dynamics. He wasn't naive, he knew he wasn't exactly Aphrodite's type, but he was a master of creation, and he brought that same dedication to his marriage. He built her the most magnificent palace on Olympus, adorned with jewels, bathed in soft light, and filled with automatons to cater to her every whim. He crafted exquisite jewellery for her, beyond anything any other goddess possessed, each piece a testament to his adoration and skill. He made her a girdle, for example, that was said to enhance her beauty and allure even further. It's a quirky tidbit that despite the forced nature of their union, Hephaestus consistently tried to win Aphrodite's affection through his craftsmanship, almost as if he believed enough beautiful gifts could compensate for a lack of romantic chemistry. But love, as we know, cannot be forged, even by a divine smith. Aphrodite, used to adoration and the pursuit of handsome gods and mortals, was simply not interested in a faithful domestic life with Hephaestus. Her heart, or perhaps her eye, wandered frequently. This marital discord forms a significant subplot in many Greek myths, showcasing the complexities of even divine relationships. Historians still argue whether Zeus intended the marriage as a reward, a punishment for Hephaestus's trick on Hera, or simply a convenient way to keep Aphrodite, a goddess known for causing a lot of trouble, tethered to someone stable. Regardless of the intent, the result was a union marked by a distinct lack of genuine affection on one side and a quiet, perhaps resigned, devotion on the other. It set the stage for some truly classic mythological drama, proving that even a god of unparalleled skill can't forge true love. As you might have guessed, a marriage between the goddess of beauty and love and the god of the forge, born out of obligation rather than affection, was destined for complications. Aphrodite, true to her nature, was not content to be a dutiful wife to Hephaestus. Her gaze, and often her affections, drifted. And who was the most frequent object of her wandering eye? None other than Ares, the fiery god of war. Imagine the ultimate power couple, beauty and brawn, passion and aggression, all wrapped up in a scandalous, ongoing affair. Hephaestus, meanwhile, was likely more focused on his latest automaton or the perfect temper for a celestial blade. But while Hephaestus might have seemed oblivious, or perhaps just resigned, he was far from a fool. His mind, which conceived intricate mechanisms and cunning traps for goddesses, was certainly capable of detecting infidelity. He was, after all, the master of observation and meticulous detail. He began to suspect, to notice the telltale signs, the stolen glances, the hushed conversations, the increasingly frequent errands Aphrodite would run. And like any good inventor, when he encountered a problem, he didn't just brood, he engineered a solution. Hephaestus decided to set a trap, a masterpiece of his craft, designed not for revenge in the violent sense, but for maximum public humiliation. He began to forge something truly extraordinary, an invisible net, so fine it was imperceptible to the eye, yet so strong it was unbreakable. This wasn't just a simple fishing net. It was a miraculous creation, woven from threads of bronze as thin as spider silk, yet stronger than any steel. He crafted it with cunning springs and mechanisms, designed to snap shut at the slightest touch. It's a mainstream historical fact that the story of Hephaestus catching Aphrodite and Ares in his net is one of the most famous and enduring tales in Greek mythology, showcasing his cleverness. He draped this ethereal net over his marital bed, setting it with precision, knowing that soon his unfaithful wife and her lover would fall right into his ingenious snare. You can almost picture him, quietly humming to himself, putting the finishing touches on his invisible masterpiece, perhaps with a wry smile playing on his lips. He was turning his humiliation into a public spectacle, and he was doing it with style. The moment arrived. Aphrodite and Ares, caught up in their illicit passion, entered the bedchamber. They likely dismissed the limping Hephaestus as preoccupied with his work, too focused on metal to notice their clandestine meetings. As they lay together, the invisible net sprang, instantly wrapping around them, pinning them in an unbreakable embrace. They were caught, naked and exposed, unable to move, unable to escape, tangled in the very symbol of Hephaestus's betrayal. It's a quirky tidbit that while Hephaestus was often portrayed as physically unattractive, his mind was exceptionally sharp, and his acts of revenge were often more intellectual and humiliating than violent. Hephaestus, with perfect timing, then threw open the doors of his bedchamber and invited all the other Olympian gods to witness the spectacle. Imagine the scene, the gods arriving, some perhaps stifling laughter, others looking scandalized, all of them witnessing the ultimate divine reality show. Apollo and Hermes even made jokes about wanting to be in Ares' position, caught in such a predicament with Aphrodite. Historians still argue whether Hephaestus's primary motivation was personal revenge, or to publicize Aphrodite's infidelity, and perhaps even embarrass Zeus for arranging such a mismatched marriage, but the result was a definitive and unforgettable moment in Olympian history. Hephaestus had not only exposed their affair, but had done so in the most brilliantly humiliating way possible, proving that even the most beautiful and powerful gods were not beyond the reach of his ingenious traps. You've seen his workshop, heard about his early training, and witnessed his ingenious, if slightly vindictive, trap for Aphrodite and Ares. Now, let's step fully inside the heart of Hephaestus's power, his legendary workshop. This wasn't just a shed with some tools. It was a marvel of divine engineering, a place that hummed with magical energy and mechanical innovation. Forget your modern factories with their assembly lines. Hephaestus's forge was a living, breathing entity, a testament to what a truly brilliant mind, coupled with divine power, could achieve. Imagine walking in. The air is thick with the scent of hot metal, volcanic ash, and something elsey, faint, almost electrical tang of magic. The primary heat source isn't just a simple fire. It's a roaring volcanic furnace, often depicted as being fed by Mount Etna itself. The magma glows with an intense, mesmerizing light, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The clang of Hephaestus's hammer on his mighty anvil is the constant rhythm, deep and resonant, a sound that signifies creation. This setting, often deep within a mountain or volcano, is a mainstream historical fact in descriptions of Hephaestus's forge, emphasizing his connection to the raw power of the earth. But what truly sets Hephaestus's workshop apart are the wonders that populate it. This isn't just a manual labor operation. Oh no. Hephaestus, the ultimate inventor, was far ahead of his time, even for the gods. His workshop was filled with automatons, self-moving creations that assisted him in his monumental tasks. Think of early concepts of robotics, but powered by divine essence and ingenious clockwork, centuries before anyone even dreamt of cogs and gears in the mortal world. These weren't mere tools, they were intelligent, purposeful machines. He had tripods that could move on their own, capable of serving wine and moving throughout the divine feasts. We'll get to those in more detail later, but for now, just picture a mechanical waiter, perfectly programmed for divine hospitality. He also had golden handmaidens, life-sized figures crafted from pure gold, gleaming and articulate, who could speak, think, and perform tasks. These weren't just pretty statues. They were sophisticated mechanical beings, almost like early versions of humanoid robots, designed to anticipate his needs and assist him with his work. It's a quirky tidbit that Hephaestus, the loneliest of the gods, filled his workshop with companions of his own making, reflecting perhaps a desire for understanding and intelligent assistance that he didn't always find among his Olympian peers. Beyond the automatons, his workshop contained an array of ingenious devices and specialized tools, each crafted with meticulous care and imbued with specific magical properties. Imagine tongs that could adjust their grip with a thought, or hammers that struck with precisely the right force, every time. His bellows weren't just leather and wood. They were possibly living wind spirits or self-operating mechanisms that ensured a perfect, continuous flow of air to his fires. Historians still argue whether the concept of automatons in Greek myth was purely fantastical or inspired by early, rudimentary mechanical devices and toys known in ancient times, but Hephaestus's creations certainly push the boundaries of what was conceivable. His workshop was a place of perpetual innovation, a testament to a divine mind, always pushing the limits of what could be built, shaped, and brought to life. It was here, amidst the smoke and sparks, that the future was literally hammered into existence. Among the many incredible creations that emerged from Hephaestus's fiery forge, one stands out for its sheer scale and fearsome purpose: Talos, the giant bronze automaton. This wasn't some cute wine-serving robot. Talos was a colossal guardian, a fearsome sentry designed for defense and destruction. Imagine a towering figure, made entirely of gleaming, hardened bronze, stalking the perimeter of an island. This isn't just a myth. The concept of an artificial guardian has captivated human imagination for millennia. The story of Talos is a mainstream historical fact in Greek mythology, specifically associated with the island of Crete, the legendary birthplace of Zeus. Hephaestus forged Talos at the command of Zeus, who then gifted this formidable sentinel to King Minos of Crete. Why did Minos need such a protector? Crete was a wealthy and powerful island, and Zeus wanted to ensure its security and prevent invasions. Talos was designed to patrol the shores of Crete 3 times a day, acting as an unyielding, tireless guard against pirates and potential invaders. Imagine being a pirate ship, approaching the shores of Crete, thinking you found an easy target. Suddenly, from the cliffs, a gigantic bronze man, shimmering in the sun, begins to move. Talos was terrifyingly efficient. He would hurl massive rocks at approaching ships, crushing them like nutshells. If any intruders managed to land, he would heat his bronze body to a scorching red-hot temperature and then embrace them, literally burning them to death. It's a chilling thought, a testament to Hephaestus's ability to create not just beauty, but also instruments of immense power and fear. What made Talos truly extraordinary, beyond his immense size and strength, was his intricate design. He wasn't just a mindless golem. He possessed a singular vein that ran from his neck to his ankle, sealed by a bronze nail. This vein contained his ichor, the divine blood of the gods, which gave him life and animation. As long as this nail was intact, Talos was indestructible. It's a quirky tidbit that many of Hephaestus's creations, even the most powerful, often had a single, specific weakness, almost like a divine kill switch. It adds a layer of vulnerability to even the most formidable of his constructs. The myth of Talos touches upon fascinating themes: the creation of artificial life, the concept of an unthinking, unwavering guardian, and the fine line between protector and monster. Historians still argue whether the myth of Talos was purely imaginative or perhaps inspired by early, automated defensive mechanisms or even giant bronze statues that were known to exist in ancient times. Some speculate that the legend of Talos might have roots in early Minoan attempts at coastal defense, perhaps using signal fires or other ingenious methods to deter invaders, which then morphed into the myth of a bronze giant. Regardless, Talos represents the pinnacle of Hephaestus's engineering prowess applied to warfare and defense, a chilling precursor to modern concepts of autonomous weapons. He was a mechanical marvel, a silent, burning sentinel guarding an entire island with unwavering, devastating efficiency, a true masterpiece of divine robotics. From the colossal and terrifying Talos, Hephaestus's creative genius swung to another, profoundly significant creation, one that would dramatically alter the course of both divine and mortal history. This was the crafting of Pandora, the first woman. Now, this isn't a story about love or inspiration. It's a tale steeped in divine retribution and human curiosity. You see, Zeus, perpetually annoyed by humanity, and specifically by the titan Prometheus, who had dared to steal fire from the gods and give it to mortals, decided it was time for a divine punishment. He couldn't directly take back the fire, but he could introduce a counterbalance, something that would bring troubles and toil to the human race, which until then had lived in a rather idyllic, perhaps too easy, existence. And for this intricate task, he turned naturally to Hephaestus, the ultimate artisan. It's a mainstream historical fact that the creation of Pandora by Hephaestus at Zeus's command is a pivotal moment in Greek mythology, often seen as the origin of human suffering and curiosity. Zeus commanded Hephaestus to create a being of unparalleled beauty, a creature that would seem like a gift, but carry within her the seeds of misfortune. Imagine Hephaestus, working with a mix of earth and water, shaping this new form with his divine hands. He imbued her with exquisite features, delicate limbs, and a grace that would captivate any observer. This wasn't just a statue. It was a living, breathing being designed to be irresistible. Hephaestus, the god who knew all about craftsmanship, poured all his skill into making her outwardly perfect, a true masterpiece of form. But Pandora wasn't just Hephaestus's creation alone. Other gods contributed their own gifts, though these were often double-edged. Aphrodite bestowed beauty and desire. Hermes, the trickster, gave her cunning, persuasion, and a deceptive nature. Athena taught her crafts, like weaving. Every god added a characteristic, contributing to her allure, but also, subtly, to the qualities that would lead to her fateful actions. The very name Pandora means all-gifted, or, more ominously, all-giving of evils. It's a quirky tidbit that while Hephaestus crafted her body, her personality and the inherent gifts that led to her eventual actions were a collaborative effort from many Olympians, truly making her a cosmic package deal. The ultimate purpose of Pandora, beyond her captivating beauty, was to serve as the unwitting carrier of suffering. She was given a jar, often mistakenly called a box in popular culture, within which were contained all the evils, sorrows, diseases, and hardships that would plague humanity. She was instructed never to open it, a command that, given the gifts of curiosity and deception she also received, was almost certainly doomed to fail. Historians still argue whether Pandora was merely an instrument of Zeus's wrath, lacking true free will, or if her curiosity was an inherent part of her all-gifted nature, making her actions inevitable rather than purely coerced. Regardless, her creation by Hephaestus marked a profound shift in the human experience, introducing the concept of toil, pain, and the complexities of existence that we still grapple with today. From the mastersmith's hands, not only tools of divine power emerged, but also the very vessel through which sorrow would enter the mortal world, a testament to his transformative power in ways he perhaps never intended. Hephaestus's hands weren't just skilled at crafting beautiful, deceptive women or colossal bronze guardians. His true genius often shone brightest in the heat of battle, though he himself was no warrior. It was in forging the weapons and armour of heroes that his unparalleled artistry truly manifested, elevating mere mortals to near-divine status on the battlefield. And perhaps no single creation exemplifies this more than the magnificent shield of Achilles. You see, Achilles, the greatest Greek warrior of the Trojan War, faced a moment of profound crisis. His beloved companion Patroclus had been killed wearing Achilles' own armour, which was then stripped from his body by Hector. Grief-stricken and burning for vengeance, Achilles needed new armour, armour worthy of his rage and his destiny. His divine mother, Thetis, yes, one of the very sea nymphs who had nurtured Hephaestus, knew there was only one god who could craft such a masterpiece. So she journeyed to Hephaestus's forge, deep within the volcano, to plead for his aid. This scene, Thetis appealing to Hephaestus for Achilles' armour, is a mainstream historical fact from Homer's Iliad, one of the cornerstones of Western literature. Imagine Hephaestus receiving his former foster mother, still scarred by the memory of Hera's rejection, but deeply respectful of Thetis's kindness. He readily agreed to her request, not just to forge armour, but to create a work of art that would transcend mere protection. And the centrepiece of this divine craftsmanship was the shield. This wasn't just a defensive implement, it was a cosmic tapestry hammered out of 5 layers of metal, gold, tin, bronze, silver, and iron, each depicting a universe of detail. Hephaestus didn't just engrave scenes, he brought them to life. On the shield, you could see the cosmos itself, the earth, the sky, the sea, the sun, the moon, and the constellations. Then, in stunning detail, two bustling cities, one at peace, celebrating a wedding with music and dancing, and another at war, besieged by armies. You could see fields being ploughed, vineyards heavy with grapes, herds of cattle moving to pasture, and a king's estate where sheep grazed. There were scenes of a harvest, a lively dance floor, and the vast rolling ocean with fish and sea creatures. It was a complete microcosm of the mortal world, rendered with such vividness that it seemed to move and breathe. It's a quirky tidbit that the shield of Achilles, described in such detail by Homer, provided ancient Greeks with a powerful visual encyclopedia of their own world, from daily life to warfare and the heavens. The description of the shield in the Iliad is incredibly long and detailed, showcasing Hephaestus's mastery not just of metal, but of storytelling through his craft. He was able to capture the essence of human existence, with all its joys and sorrows, its labours and its conflicts, on a single piece of protective gear. This wasn't just metalworking. It was a profound philosophical statement, an artistic marvel that underscored the value of mortal life even in the midst of divine intervention. Historians still argue about whether Homer's description of the shield was meant to be literally possible, or if it was a literary device to showcase the ultimate skill and artistry of a divine craftsman, and to symbolize the entire human world that Achilles fought to defend. Regardless, Hephaestus's creation for Achilles stands as a monumental achievement, a perfect blend of destructive purpose and breathtaking beauty, forged by the very god who understood both the agony of rejection and the solace of creation. Just as Hephaestus crafted the ultimate defensive masterpiece for a mortal hero, he also forged an equally powerful, if not more formidable, protective item for the king of the gods himself, the Aegis. This wasn't merely a shield, it was a symbol of Zeus's supreme authority, an object capable of inspiring terror and awe in gods and mortals alike. While often associated with Athena, who frequently wielded it, the Aegis was originally and most powerfully a creation of Hephaestus for Zeus. It's a mainstream historical fact that the Aegis is one of the most iconic and powerful artifacts in Greek mythology, directly linked to Zeus's dominion. Imagine not just a piece of metal, but a shield fringed with serpents, or sometimes tassels that look like serpents, emblazoned with the terrifying head of the Gorgon Medusa, after Perseus had slain her, of course, and radiating an aura of impenetrable power. It wasn't always a physical shield either. Sometimes it was depicted as a goatskin cloak or breastplate. Regardless of its exact form, its purpose was singular: to instill panic in enemies and protect its wielder from any harm. When Zeus brandished the Aegis, it was said that it could generate storms, create thunder and lightning, even without his thunderbolts, and emit a terrifying roar that would send entire armies fleeing in disarray. It wasn't just physical protection, it was psychological warfare on a divine scale. The sheer sight of it, especially with Medusa's petrifying gaze fixed upon an opponent, was enough to make even the bravest warrior's knees tremble. Hephaestus infused it with such potency that it became almost an extension of Zeus's own terrifying power. The craftsmanship involved in the Aegis was, as expected from Hephaestus, extraordinary. He didn't just assemble it, he poured divine essence and complex enchantments into its very fabric. The Medusa head, once a living horror, was affixed to the centre, granting the Aegis its most fearsome power, the ability to turn onlookers to stone. This addition, whether directly by Hephaestus or later incorporated by Athena, made the Aegis utterly unique and terrifying. It's a quirky tidbit that the Aegis, despite its fearsome power, was also used as a symbol of divine protection and authority, not just destruction. It represented the unassailable power of Zeus to both defend and punish. Historians still argue about the exact origins of the Aegis. Some theorize it might have roots in ancient cult objects or ritualistic animal skins used in religious ceremonies, which were then mythologized into a divine artifact. Others see it as a purely symbolic representation of Zeus's absolute power. But what is undeniable is Hephaestus's role in its creation, giving physical form to an abstract concept of divine terror and invincibility. From the humble beginnings of his grotto, to crafting gifts for nymphs, to ensnaring his unfaithful wife, Hephaestus's creations escalated in complexity and significance. The Aegis stands as a powerful testament to his ability to forge not just objects, but also instruments of ultimate divine authority, solidifying his indispensable role as the architect of Olympus's might. We've explored the grand, the terrifying, and the dramatically significant of Hephaestus's creations, from the immense Talos to the cosmically detailed Shield of Achilles. But let's zoom in a little, into the very heart of his forge, and appreciate the quieter, yet no less revolutionary, aspects of his genius, his automaton assistants. These weren't just inanimate objects. They were Hephaestus's companions, his tireless workers, and perhaps a reflection of his own desire for intelligent collaboration. Imagine Hephaestus, a solitary figure, often engrossed in his work, but never truly alone. Surrounding him are beings of his own making, moving with smooth, precise motions, assisting him in tasks that would be impossible for any single god, let alone a mortal. These automatons ranged from the robust to the exquisitely delicate, each serving a specific purpose in the grand symphony of his workshop. This concept of self-moving, intelligent devices is a mainstream historical fact within the narratives of Hephaestus, showcasing a sophisticated understanding of mechanics and control far beyond their time. We already briefly touched upon the golden handmaidens, those shining, life-sized figures that could walk, talk, and perform various duties. These were more than just servants. They were designed with intelligence, able to anticipate Hephaestus's needs, fetch his tools, or even engage him in conversation. Think of them as the ultimate personal assistants, always on call, never complaining, and perfectly attuned to the master's workflow. You can imagine the quiet companionship they provided, especially to a god often perceived as a loner among the boisterous Olympians. They weren't just beautiful, they were functional, efficient, and probably excellent at organizing his endless supply of magical hammers. Beyond the humanoid forms, Hephaestus also crafted various animal automatons and specialized mechanical devices. There were the self-moving bellows, tirelessly pumping air into his furnaces, ensuring a consistent scorching flame for his work. These weren't operated by slaves or lesser deities. They were self-sufficient, magical machines, a testament to his desire to automate tedious labor. Picture dragon-shaped bellows, perhaps, with steam puffing from their nostrils, or metallic birds flapping their wings to create the perfect draft. It's a quirky tidbit that the myths often emphasize the lifelike quality of Hephaestus's automatons, not just their functionality, hinting at a desire to imbue his creations with a semblance of life itself. He also created mechanical hounds to guard his home and workshop, vigilant sentinels made of precious metals, perhaps even capable of barking or emitting terrifying growls. These weren't just decorative, they were designed for security, responding to threats with robotic precision. Historians still argue about the philosophical implications of these automatons. Did they possess a form of consciousness? Were they simply highly advanced machines, or did Hephaestus imbue them with a spark of divine animation? Regardless, they represent a profound leap in the imagination of what artificial intelligence and robotics could achieve. His workshop wasn't just a place of divine craftsmanship, It was a glimpse into a future where machines could think, serve, and even perhaps understand, proving that Hephaestus was not just a master smith, but the original robot enthusiast. You've seen his powerful handmaidens and fierce mechanical hounds, but among Hephaestus's most charming and widely utilized automatons were his ingenious tripods. These weren't your average three-legged stands. They were divine serving machines, designed for both practical utility and a touch of Olympian luxury. Imagine being at a grand feast on Olympus, surrounded by gods and goddesses, and instead of human, or even nymph, servants scurrying about, you have elegant, golden tripods gliding across the marble floors, delivering ambrosia and nectar with graceful precision. This concept of self-moving tables, or serving devices, is a mainstream historical fact mentioned in Homer's Iliad when describing Hephaestus's workshop. Hephaestus created 20 of these self-moving tripods for the council hall of the gods. Their primary function was to serve at the divine banquets, effortlessly moving to and from the tables, anticipating the gods' needs for refreshment. This wasn't just about convenience, it was about efficiency and eliminating the need for lesser deities or servants to perform menial tasks. Hephaestus, ever the innovator, sought to streamline divine hospitality with his mechanical wonders. Each tripod was made of gold, perhaps adorned with intricate designs, and equipped with wheels or small legs that allowed them to move independently. They could approach the dining gods, present their offerings, and then retreat, all without any visible human or divine intervention. It's a bit like having a fleet of perfectly programmed, silent robotic waiters, only far more elegant and ancient. You can almost hear the soft whirring of their gears, or perhaps the gentle click of their golden mechanisms as they fulfill their duties. Beyond their serving capabilities, these tripods also served as symbols of Hephaestus's unparalleled skill. They weren't just functional, they were a display of divine ingenuity, a marvel that even the other gods appreciated. Imagine the casual awe as Zeus's goblet refilled itself, or Hera received a fresh platter of divine pastries, all delivered by a golden, self-propelled table. It's a quirky tidbit that these tripods also had the ability to enter and leave the Hall of the Gods on their own accord, indicating a level of autonomy that truly pushed the boundaries of ancient concepts of animation. They were intelligent enough to navigate the complex social dynamics of an Olympian banquet, which, frankly, is a pretty high bar for any robot. Historians still argue whether the descriptions of these automatons in ancient texts were purely metaphorical, exaggerating human achievements in mechanics, or if they represented a genuine, if aspirational, understanding of complex machinery in the minds of the ancient Greeks. Perhaps there were rudimentary mechanical toys, or hydraulic devices, that inspired these grand mythical creations. But regardless of their literal possibility, Hephaestus's tripods highlight his forward-thinking nature, his desire to alleviate labour through intelligent design, and his status as the original roboticist. He wasn't just forging weapons, he was forging the future, one self-serving, golden table at a time. They hummed with divine purpose, ensuring that even the most mundane aspects of Olympian life were touched by Hephaestus's extraordinary, often overlooked brilliance. The tales of Hephaestus and his incredible creations, from the formidable Talos to the elegant, self-moving tripods and intelligent golden handmaidens, do more than just entertain. They offer a fascinating glimpse into the ancient Greek mind, revealing a surprising foresight and a profound imagination about the very concept of automation and artificial intelligence. Long before the silicon chip, or the integrated circuit, the Greeks were dreaming of machines that could move, think, and serve. These myths weren't just fanciful stories, They were philosophical explorations of what it means to create life, to imbue an object with purpose and intelligence. The idea of automata was a tangible concept to them, even if their practical applications were limited. They observed the mechanics of the natural world, the intricate movements of celestial bodies, and the rhythmic precision of human craftsmanship, and they projected these observations onto their divine figures. Hephaestus, with his divine spark and unparalleled skill, was the perfect embodiment of this imaginative leap. This ancient fascination with automatons is a mainstream historical fact appearing in various myths and even early philosophical texts. Think about it. Hephaestus's creations were not just tools, they possessed agency, albeit limited. The tripods moved themselves to and from the tables. Talos patrolled the island and burned invaders. The handmaidens spoke and thought. These weren't just levers and pulleys. They were infused with a kind of anima, a soul or spirit given by their divine creator. This concept hints at a very early understanding of complex systems where individual components work together to achieve a larger, intelligent function. The Greeks, though lacking modern technology, were keen observers of the world. They had sophisticated clockwork mechanisms, hydraulic devices, and even pneumatic inventions. For example, the Antikythera mechanism, a complex ancient Greek analog computer used to predict astronomical positions and eclipses, discovered much later, shows just how advanced their mechanical understanding could be. This is a quirky tidbit that often surprises people. The Greeks weren't just philosophers and artists, they were also ingenious engineers. It's not a direct creation of Hephaestus, of course, but it exemplifies the kind of mechanical prowess that could inspire such myths. The myths of Hephaestus's automatons demonstrate a deep-seated human desire to delegate labour, to create extensions of ourselves that can perform tasks with greater efficiency and precision. It's the same impulse that drives us to create robots today. They pondered questions that still resonate. What happens when a creation becomes too powerful, like Talos? What are the ethical implications of imbuing objects with life, like Pandora? Historians still argue whether these myths were merely metaphors for the skilled crafts of the time, or if they represented a genuine, though perhaps fantastical, vision of a technologically advanced future. Regardless, Hephaestus's workshop serves as a vivid reminder that the dream of intelligent machines is as old as human civilization itself, a timeless fascination with the line between the living and the mechanical. The rhythmic clang of his hammer echoes through millennia, a testament to the enduring human quest to build and innovate. So, we've peered into the divine workshop of Hephaestus, where automatons served wine and bronze giants patrolled islands. Now, let's fast forward a few millennia and consider how these ancient myths, born from the minds of ingenious Greeks, find their echoes in our own world. The line from Hephaestus's golden handmaidens to today's sophisticated robotics and artificial intelligence is not a straight one, of course, but the conceptual thread is remarkably clear. The core impulse behind Hephaestus's creation to automate tasks, to create intelligent agents, to build things that move and respond without constant human interventionists, precisely what drives the field of modern robotics. When you see a robotic arm on an assembly line, precisely welding car parts, or a drone flying autonomously to deliver packages, you are witnessing the fulfillment of Hephaestus's ancient vision. The only difference is the power source and the materials. Instead of divine ichor and molten bronze, we have electricity, algorithms, and microchips. This parallel between ancient myths of automatons and modern robotics is a mainstream historical fact often discussed in academic circles, highlighting the enduring nature of human ingenuity. Think about the functions of Hephaestus's creations. His tripods served food and drink. Today, we have robotic baristas and automated kitchens. His handmaidens were companions and assistants. Now, we have advanced virtual assistants like the one I'm embodying right now, and increasingly lifelike humanoid robots designed for care and companionship. Talos was a security guard. We have surveillance drones and automated security systems. The desire to create mechanical helpers and protectors is deeply ingrained in human nature, and Hephaestus simply had the divine power to bring those desires to life in a literal sense. The concept of a machine imbued with a kind of intelligence, even if rudimentary, is fascinating. Hephaestus's automatons weren't just programmed to repeat motions. They could seemingly react and adapt. This taps into the very essence of artificial intelligence. When you interact with a chatbot that seems to understand your questions, or witness a self-driving car navigate complex traffic, you're experiencing a form of intelligence that, while not divine, aims to replicate human cognitive abilities. It's a quirky tidbit that the ancient Greek word for automaton, automatos, literally means acting of itself, perfectly encapsulating the goal of both Hephaestus and modern AI developers. Historians still argue whether the ancients truly believed these automatons were sentient, or if they were metaphors for incredibly skilled craftsmanship. But their myths clearly articulated a world where machines could perform complex tasks independently. The myth served as a sort of early speculative fiction, pushing the boundaries of what technology could achieve. From the volcanic forge of Hephaestus, spewing smoke and sparks, to the clean rooms of modern robotics labs in places like Boston or Tokyo, the dream of bringing inert materials to life, of creating intelligent servants and powerful guardians, continues to drive innovation. We are, in a way, all Hephaestus, constantly striving to craft our own versions of his mechanical marvels, forever bridging the gap between imagination and reality. As we bridge the ancient myths of Hephaestus to our modern age of robotics and AI, a crucial and often unsettling question inevitably arises. The ethical quandary of creating artificial life, or at least artificial intelligence, that mimics life. This isn't just a modern concern. The myths themselves, in their subtle ways, wrestled with these very issues. Consider Pandora, created by Hephaestus at Zeus's command. She was a beautiful, captivating creation, yet she brought suffering and toil into the world. While not an automaton in the sense of a machine, her creation raises questions about responsibility. Who is accountable for the consequences of a creation, particularly when that creation is designed with a specific and potentially problematic purpose? Zeus commanded it, Hephaestus crafted it, but humanity bore the burden. This question of creator responsibility is a mainstream historical fact in philosophical discussions surrounding the Pandora myth. Then there's Talos, the bronze giant. He was a perfect guardian, tirelessly defending Crete, but he was also a mindless instrument of destruction, burning invaders to death without mercy or judgment. Hephaestus crafted him with incredible power and no inherent moral compass. What happens when such power is unleashed? When does a protective automaton become a dangerous, uncontrollable force? The myth of Talos highlights the potential for creations to exceed their intended purpose or to be used in ways that raise serious ethical dilemmas. You can easily draw parallels to modern debates about autonomous weapons systems, where machines make life or death decisions without human intervention. Hephaestus's own experiences, having been cast out by his mother, might have given him a unique perspective on the value of life and the pain of rejection. Yet, he still crafted beings designed for specific, sometimes violent, ends. This tension between the creator's intent and the creation's impact is a recurring theme. It's a quirky tidbit that while Hephaestus imbued some of his creations with intelligence, like the handmaidens, he seemingly reserved true consciousness for deities and mortals, perhaps intuitively understanding the line that shouldn't be crossed. Today, as we develop increasingly sophisticated AI and robotics, we face similar ethical dilemmas. If an AI can learn and adapt, when does it become more than just a tool? If a robot can perform complex tasks, does it deserve rights or a form of respect? What are the implications if AI surpasses human intelligence? How do we ensure that our creations remain beneficial and don't, like Pandora's jar, unleash unforeseen troubles upon the world? Historians still argue about the extent to which ancient myths consciously explored these ethical dimensions, or if they were simply narratives reflecting the power dynamics of their gods. However, the questions raised by Hephaestus's creations about the nature of artificial life, the responsibility of the creator, and the potential for unintended consequences remain strikingly relevant. The faint hum of Hephaestus's forge, therefore, isn't just a sound of creation, it's a quiet echo of the ethical responsibilities we still grapple with as we continue to build our own automated future. After all this talk of mighty creations, divine drama, and early robotics, it's easy to get swept up in the grand narratives of Zeus, Hera, and the warrior heroes. But let's take a moment to truly appreciate Hephaestus, the unsung hero of Olympus. He might not have had the dazzling beauty of Apollo, the strategic brilliance of Athena, or the raw power of Zeus, but without him, Olympus would have been a far less impressive place, and the mortal world would have lacked some of its most pivotal artifacts. Hephaestus was the indispensable engine room of the divine world. Who made Zeus's thunderbolts, the very symbol of his authority? Hephaestus. Who forged Poseidon's trident, Ares' formidable armour, or Hermes' winged sandals? All Hephaestus. Every god and goddess, at some point, benefited directly from his skill. Yet, he often remained in the background, toiling in his fiery forge, far from the dramatic machinations and power struggles of the Olympian court. This consistent role as the divine craftsman behind the scenes is a mainstream historical fact throughout countless Greek myths. His character, too, sets him apart. Unlike many of his divine relatives, who were often petty, vain, or cruel, Hephaestus possessed a certain quiet dignity, resilience, and even a touch of vulnerability. He endured a traumatic start to life, suffered betrayal from his wife, and yet he channeled his pain and his passion into creation. He wasn't defined by his physical limitations, but by his unparalleled genius and his unwavering dedication to his craft. He reminds us that true strength often lies not in physical prowess, but in ingenuity, perseverance, and the ability to turn adversity into artistry. Hephaestus was the patron god of artisans, craftsmen, and engineers. He embodied the dignity of labour, the beauty of skill, and the transformative power of working with one's hands and mind. He was the god who valued creation over conquest, utility over vanity. He understood the joy of building something from nothing, of shaping raw materials into objects of immense beauty and function. He might have been limping, but his spirit soared. It's a quirky tidbit that despite his gruff and unglamorous appearance, Hephaestus was considered the most industrious and least quarrelsome of the Olympians, often preferring the company of his automatons and his work over divine feuds. Historians still argue whether Hephaestus's portrayal as physically imperfect yet supremely skilled was a way for ancient Greeks to explore the value of intelligence and craftsmanship over purely physical attributes, or perhaps even to provide a divine role model for those with disabilities. Regardless, his story offers a profound counter-narrative to the often shallow pursuits of the other gods. Hephaestus, the god of fire and forge, was more than just a craftsman. He was the quiet, creative heart of Olympus, constantly shaping the divine world, one magnificent invention at a time. He was the genius in the workshop, the overlooked force whose contributions truly made the world, both divine and mortal, go round. So, we've navigated the dramatic, the mechanical, and the quietly powerful aspects of Hephaestus' story. Now, let's consider his enduring legacy in invention and how his mythical presence continues to inspire creators and innovators even today. Hephaestus wasn't just a character in old stories. He was, and remains, a powerful archetype, the divine embodiment of ingenuity, craftsmanship, and the tireless pursuit of creation. He is, unequivocally, the patron of artisans and inventors. Every blacksmith who strikes hot iron, every engineer who designs a complex machine, every artist who transforms raw material into something beautiful and meaningful is, in a sense, echoing the divine work of Hephaestus. He represents the spark of creativity, the dedication to skill, and the satisfaction of seeing an idea brought to tangible, functional life. This role as a divine patron is a mainstream historical fact, widely recognized in ancient Greek society and beyond. Think of the attributes that define him: his mastery over fire, metal, and mechanical principles. These are the fundamental elements that underpin much of human technological progress. From the earliest tools forged in bronze to the intricate mechanisms of the Industrial Revolution, and now to the digital circuits of our modern age, the essence of Hephaestus's craft persists. He embodies the sheer will to create, to solve problems through ingenious design, and to bring order and utility to raw materials. You can almost feel the connection between his ancient forge and a modern fabrication lab, both spaces humming with the energy of transformation. His myths also celebrate the process of innovation itself. Hephaestus didn't just receive his skills, he honed them through practice, patience, and perhaps a good dose of trial and error, divine style of course. He discovered fire's potential, experimented with metals, and continuously refined his techniques. This iterative process, the constant drive to improve and invent, is at the heart of all true progress. It's a quirky tidbit that, unlike some gods who simply are their domains, Hephaestus actively works within his, making him a more relatable figure for anyone who understands the grind and joy of hands-on creation. Historians still argue about the precise influence of such myths on actual technological development in ancient Greece. Did the stories inspire invention, or did existing technological knowledge shape the myths? Most likely, it was a reciprocal relationship. However, what is undeniable is that Hephaestus provided a divine template for human ambition in craftsmanship and engineering. His legacy isn't just in the fantastical objects he created within the myths, but in the enduring inspiration he offers to anyone who seeks to build, to innovate, and to transform the world through the power of their own hands and minds. He reminds us that true magic often lies not in supernatural powers, but in the meticulous, brilliant work of a dedicated creator. As the echoes of Hephaestus's hammer begin to soften, and the shimmering light from his divine forge dims, feel yourself easing away from the bustling, fiery workshop and back into the quiet comfort of your own space. The grand tales of gods and automatons, of creation and consequence, are now settling in your mind, becoming part of the tapestry of your knowledge. We've journeyed through the dramatic highs and lows of a god often overlooked, but whose ingenuity shaped the very fabric of his world, and whose story continues to resonate in ours. The sounds of distant thunderbolts and clanging metal are fading, replaced by the gentle hush of your surroundings. Your mind, once actively engaged with tales of divine engineering and ancient wonders, now begins to slow unfurling like a soft, warm blanket. Allow any remaining thoughts of golden thrones or bronze giants to gently drift away like wisps of smoke from Hephaestus's cooling forge. You've explored enough for tonight, and your imagination has certainly had its work out. Feel the gentle pull of gravity anchoring you to your bed, to this moment of stillness. The ancient world, with all its myths and marvels, is receding, leaving behind a faint glow, a pleasant memory of shared stories. There's nothing more to grasp, nothing more to analyze, just the steady rhythm of your own breath, drawing you deeper and deeper into a state of profound relaxation. Your body is growing heavier, softer, each muscle letting go of its tension. Perhaps you can still feel a faint, comforting warmth, like the residual heat from a well-tended fire, a warmth that speaks of creation, of purpose, and of the quiet satisfaction of a task completed. But even that sensation is now becoming more diffuse, blending into the ambient warmth of your room. The vivid imagery of Olympus and its divine inhabitants is softening at the edges, blurring into the gentle darkness behind your eyelids. There's a quiet, calm settling over everything now. The stories have been told, the journey completed. All that's left is the gentle drift towards sleep. Your eyelids feel heavy, comfortably weighted, as if they too are made of ancient, peaceful stone. Let your consciousness simply float, unburdened by thoughts or plans, drifting like a cloud across a vast, empty sky. The work is done, the world is quiet, and rest beckons softly. The final tendrils of thought concerning Hephaestus and his incredible world are now dissolving, dissipating into the soft, inviting stillness that surrounds you. Your mind, which journeyed through the heights of Olympus and the depths of the ocean, is now a calm, unruffled surface, reflecting only peace. The clang of the hammer, the whir of gears, the distant rumble of a volcano, all those rich sensory details are fading, becoming whispers in the far reaches of your memory. Feel the profound quiet settling over you, a quiet that is not empty, but full of gentle warmth and comfort. Every breath you take is a smooth, effortless rhythm, deepening with each passing moment, drawing you further into a state of profound rest. Your limbs are heavy, weighted by the peaceful exhaustion of a day well spent, a mind well travelled. There's no need to hold on to anything, no need to think, just to simply be. Let the final images of Hephaestus, perhaps crafting a delicate piece of jewellery or guiding his golden handmaidens, soften and blur, dissolving like mist at dawn. He is resting now, too, his forge quieted, his creations complete, his work for the night done, and so is yours. You have absorbed the stories, appreciated the ingenuity, and now it is time for your own well-deserved repose. Imagine yourself drifting on a tranquil sea, the surface perfectly still, reflecting the soft glow of a distant, benevolent moon. There are no waves, no currents, just a gentle, effortless float. The air is cool and soft against your skin, carrying only the faintest whisper of a breeze. You are safe, you are warm, and you are utterly at peace. Your eyelids are fully closed now, a comforting darkness enveloping your vision. Every thought that arises is simply acknowledged and allowed to float away, like a tiny bubble rising to the surface and silently popping. You are moving beyond the realm of waking, stepping gently across the threshold into the deepest, most restorative sleep. Let yourself sink, completely and utterly, into this comforting oblivion, knowing that the wonders of myth will be there, waiting, should you choose to revisit them. For now, only dreams await.